All right, guys. Well, I'm back today discussing one of my go-to AR-15 rifles, as well as an AR setup that would make a great setup for just a jack-of-all-trades rifle or your first AR that you wanted to use for a wide variety of roles and applications. Now, the AR-15 is like Legos for men or Barbie dolls for men. There are so many ways you can mix and match and set up an AR-15. The options are endless. If you're new to the channel, definitely consider subscribing. I've got a ton of videos discussing the AR, its accessories, the overall uses for an AR-15, and why you would want one in your particular arsenal. I also review a ton of different high-value optics and budget accessories that actually work, and I go through and test out a ton of different upper assemblies, including the one we're looking at today. Now, the AR-15 is the rifle that I've been getting asked the most about in person as well as on Instagram. So I wanted to make this video as clear and concise as possible to discuss what I would recommend for your first AR, or one of the ARs that I would recommend for like a beginner AR, or even just somebody who wants one AR but doesn't want to spend a ton of money. And it's going to be centered around the Palmetto State Armory 16-inch M-LOK rail system upper assemblies and one of their complete lowers. You can buy this as a complete AR-15. You can buy it as just the complete upper assembly itself and get that shipped to your house. Then buy a complete lower assembly and get that shipped to an FFL and transfer it on a 4473. Now, we are going to head to the table in a minute and give you guys a close-up look at some of the accessories I use, including the optics on top. But I want to do a quick overview while I've got the full rifle in front of you to show you some things that I like and some things that I don't necessarily like about some of the Palmetto State Armory AR-15s. And one of the first things I want to mention is durability and reliability. So this is one of the torture test rifles that I've had out to the channel for about 2 years now, and this thing still runs great. This has been dropped off of a 40-foot shooting tower, shot with a 12-gauge shotgun about 4 or 5 times over the course of a few different videos. We've ran over it with the truck multiple times. We've really beat on this thing, dropped it on rocks, thrown it in the air, smashed it up against cars. It just keeps working, no issues whatsoever. Definitely check out those videos, and if you haven't seen them, it's worth going back at previous videos on the channel and taking a look at that. I also do videos discussing best AR-15s under 1,000, or best AR-15s under 800, or best optics for an AR-15. There's so many videos like this that I've done that are a wealth of information that you guys can dig back through the years and really see how things have evolved, where things have come from, and the durability of the AR-15 that we're talking about today. So this kit from PSA is available still on their website, and they also have some different versions that are also available on their website. One thing I do want to mention is I have a campsite page in the description below, and that campsite page is an aggregate site of all the best deals I find on the internet, including specific info on what I'm talking about today, so you'll definitely want to check that out. Now, this is a slightly different variant of the torture test rifle, and it's got some updates and enhancements that I really like and things that I want to discuss. One thing that I like is the M-LOK rail system. If you're picking a rifle that's going to be a good jack-of-all-trades rifle, the M-LOK rail system is going to be the way to go. Now, they also offer quad rail systems, and they used to offer key mod, but that is no longer popular for just obvious reasons. If you've used key mod in the past for long periods of time, it seems like M-LOK really won out in almost every application. Now, the quad rails that are having a resurgence here lately in the AR world, they're going to be a little bit heavier, and they're also going to be a little bit more classic design. Now, I like quad rails, and I've got a few new ones that have just came out, but for purposes of this video, I'm going to recommend M-LOK. And M-LOK is the attachment method that you would use to mount accessories to your rail system. And you can see some of the accessories mounted to this rail system right here is this light up at the top that actually clamps onto a pick rail and then mounts to the side. But you can utilize these slots right here with different M-LOK rail system to attach bipods, lights, and lasers. And it's the now new industry standard for the modern rail system. And then this rail system also has QD slots. So you want to look for some with QD slots. I personally like them machined into the rail system because of the 2-point slings that I use. It makes them really easy to clip in. Again, we can take a closer look at some of this stuff when we get back to the table. The next thing I want to discuss is the fact that the complete rifles from Palmetto State Armory can be had for right around $500 or $600, depending on the configuration you select. And again, more information about that in the campsite page in the description below. You can also follow me on my Instagram page and my Patreon page. And what that allows is for you guys to see daily deals that I post over there to gather a ton of information about that. And then the last thing I want to discuss here before we move over to the tabletop is the Optic selection. I would really recommend an LPVO. A lot of guys have been asking me, especially on my Instagram messaging, about different optics for the Jack of all trades AR-15, something that they want to shoot at 25 yards and even CQB inside your home for personal defense, or maybe something to take out to 200 or 300 yards for varmint hunting, or just defense at a long distance. If you want to call it defense, probably offense. But an LPVO, or a low power variable optic, is a scope similar to this, because this is an LPVO that has a 1 power setting that makes it like you're looking through a red dot. A lot of the more modern LPVOs have just improved dramatically over the years. And if you haven't tried one in about 3 or 4 years, you're going to be blown away at the quality of LPVOs. Now, a lot of guys are asking me, what's the best LPVO? And that's the question. Well, there's price ranges, there's company options, there's BDC reticle solutions, illumination settings, zoom settings, first focal plane or second focal plane. And I can't answer that for you. But what I can do is give you some suggestions in this video of what I'm selecting to put on this first AR, or kind of one AR that you're going to put into your collection on a high value or budget. But the other thing to do is look at my YouTube channel, go back through the video logs. I probably have 40 to 50 LPVO videos on the channel. If YouTube didn't make me delete them in the last adpocalypse about a month and a half ago. So those are going to be up there, and you can really get some detailed specs and features. But I do recommend putting an LPVO on top of this rifle, because you can use it for personal defense at the 1 power setting, especially with some of the options I'm going to discuss today. Or you can zoom it, in this case, to the 6 power setting and take shots easily out to 300 yards. So it's really good. The next thing I want to discuss is the stock and grip options available. But again, we will discuss that over at the table. So let's jump over there right now and discuss kind of how to finish out setting up your Palmetto State Armory kind of 16-inch railed AR-15. So discussing the setup of the AR, I want to move from the front to the back, and we'll kind of talk about that. And I'll try to be pretty brief and quick about each individual component. And again, you can look through the backlog to see exactly what you want to see in a more detailed fashion, full video form. But I like to leave the A2 birdcage flash hider on a general purpose rifle. It does a really good job of actually mitigating flash if we were to use this in engagement to kind of conceal your just area that you're going to be at. And then the other thing I want to mention is the 16-inch kind of mid-profile barrels, not super heavy and definitely not the lightweight, are going to be my go-to for a general purpose rifle. Now, if this is going to be traditionally a backpacking and hunting rifle, you may want a lightweight profile barrel. But if it's going to be something that you're taking to training classes, or maybe dumping mags and mags through it, having that heavier profile barrel is going to be nice. And really, there's not going to be like a super heavy profile barrel in the PSA AR-15 lineup at the 16-inch range. So for me personally, I would select the standard one, especially with a lot of the kit info over on the campsite page. That's what you're going to see over there. Now, we've already discussed the M-LOK rail systems, but if you're selecting one, I kind of like one with the monolithic pick rail at the top, meaning the pick rail extends the entire length of the upper assembly. That allows you to mount up something like this O-Light. And that's the next thing I want to discuss, your flashlight mounting solutions that you're going to be putting on here. Now, I recommend a lot of the O-Light Odin series and the Streamlight ProTac series. These are my two go-to lights, and there's a few different mounting solutions, but both of these utilize the Scout mounting solution, which was made popular by Surefire, and there's a lot of aftermarket Scout mounts. In fact, I've got videos on them as low as $10 to $15, even $20 for some of the more premium kind of off-brand mounting systems, or you can spend up to $100 on a Scout mount depending on where you grab them. But The idea is to keep this to a high value solution. So the Olight Odin series of lights comes with a magnetic pressure switch that locks into the back, and it also has this pressure switch right here that clips onto your pick rail, and all of this is included. These are also magnetic recharging, and this particular one switches between a light laser, and a laser. I personally like just the straight up Odin series of lights without the extra laser, but that's what's mounted on this rifle just for continued testing down at the range. Now, a lot of these Olights utilize different mounts included inside the box, either for M-LOK or pick rail, depending on the configuration, but they're some of the most versatile mounting solutions I've seen for a weapons light system, and I've got a lot of full videos on Olight Odins. Now, Olight can be controversial for some, just because, I don't know, that's how the internet works. But I've never had a problem with the Olight Odin series of lights. They've been my go-to rifle light on a budget for a very long time, and they generally sell for $150-ish, depending on what's going on. But I've got the code 704 Tactical for 10% off your Olight order, and a lot of times they're doing sales. In fact, one's coming up very shortly, so you'll want to stay tuned to that because you can really save some money on the Olight Odin series of lights. Now, if you don't like the Olight series of lights for whatever reason, the Streamlight Pro Tac is my next go-to light. Inside the box, you actually get the standard tail clip, or you get cap, or you get the pressure switch in the box and this pick mount right here. But when you remove the pick mount with the screws located on the sides, you'll be able to utilize this right here as the same scout mounting platform to use those same scout mounts. This one has a constant on switch and a temporary on switch, and this also mounts to the pick rail at the top, and that's why I like the monolithic pick rail at the top. A lot of companies are streamlining this down by removing that. There's no place to put your pressure switch without kind of rigging it up or taping it down, so that's rather frustrating. That's why I like the fact that this particular version that I'm recommending has that full pick rail at the top, so it's working out great. So those are the two lighting solutions that I'm going to recommend. Now, obviously, there's a ton of other lights out there, a ton of other lights that are cheaper and a ton of other lights that are more expensive. But these are personally what I'm selecting to go on my rifles. And if I feel confident enough to put them on my rifles, I feel confident enough to suggest them to you guys, especially for this style build. Again, we are talking about a $500, $600 rifle, so we're probably not going to put a $300 or $400 flashlight and accessories on the side of it right off the bat. So that $100-ish price point, 120, maybe on sale with some of the Odins, is going to be a great opportunity. And some of these deals, if you were subscribed to my channel, I did mention over Easter. Now, moving along to the upper part of the rifle itself and discussing the optics, I do want to say that I talked about the LPVO and how that has become my go-to for a 16-inch AR-15. But if you don't want an LPVO, I recommend a red dot. And those are really the two options that I recommend for a 16-inch AR-15. Sometimes a 3-18 or a 3-9 scope could be applicable for some hunting applications or long-range shootings, but as a general purpose rifle, I don't see the need for like a prism optic or a long-range scope. I feel like they limit you into one niche, or they limit you into one shooting range, and there's so many better options out there. I feel like that prism style or even ACOG style scope has become obsoleted by a prism optic because you can get them for incredibly affordable prices that do a lot of different things. But if you didn't want anything with magnification, there are so many high value and budget red dots I've reviewed on the channel recently with auto on and auto off technology, insanely bright dots. They also have waterproof ratings, shockproof ratings, and they've been working out great. Something like this A010 is about a $50 to $60 red dot that you can find on my channel that is really competing with like $150 red dots. $50 red dots are not what they used to be back 5 or 6 years ago when we first started getting them, especially like on Amazon. A lot of times I would review $20 and $30 red dots, or even $50 or $60 red dots you had to manually turn on and off. The battery life was bad, there was no shake-away technology, and the waterproof rating was at rain for best. But now, these have really blown me away in the quality and performance, so this is really all you need on the top of that AR. If you don't plan on shooting past like 250, maybe even 300 yards on man-sized targets, this red dot is going to do well. If you want to stretch it out even further or make more precise shots at those distances, the LPVO is the way to go. Now, I do want to mention a couple of things right off the bat, because if you are grabbing some of these rifles off PSA or grabbing the upper assemblies and the lower assemblies independently, some of the first things that I swap out immediately are going to be the trigger guard, the grip, and the stock, because those play a big factor in how the rifle feels down at the range. And if it doesn't feel good or ergonomic in your hands, it's not going to be as easy to manipulate down on a flat range, or even, if you had to use it in a defensive scenario. So putting enhanced trigger guard, I recommend just the basic Magpul ones. PSA also sells lowers with upgrades already on them. And so that's a nice way to save yourself some money, is if you buy one of the upgraded lowers. Again, more information on the campsite page, but the enhanced trigger guard allows it to be a little bit smoother, a little bit easier on your finger, as well as you can put glove fingers inside there pretty easily. And the next thing I want to discuss is the B5 Systems grip, or maybe some type of Magpul MOE grip is the next grip. I don't like the standard grip that comes on the AR. It's got a little lip in the front that's a little bit annoying. These have a better grip angle in my opinion. They have some nice texturing. They don't have any grooves, so every hand style will fit these grips. So I recommend something with like the MOE, the MOE K2, the B5 grip. There are so many out there, like the BCM grips. Those are all great. And then for the stock, I like some of the new B5 system stocks that just released that PSA is offering on some of their lower assemblies, or the old SOT mod style classic stocks. Both of them have QD slots to correspond with the QD slots at the front of the rifle for the 2-point sling setup, and that's where I like to run them. Or you can actually sling up a sling through the rear of these, and it also gives you a little bit of a cheek well, a rubberized pad on the buttstock, which is nice, not for necessarily like recoil, but because when you're setting your rifle down on something, they don't slide around a ton, and then they give you a little bit more traction on whatever equipment or gear you have when you're shouldering up and taking shots. Now, I do recommend, if you're going to run an LPVO, like an extended charging handle, I don't have one on here, but a lot of the Strike Industries ones seem to be great on a budget. So that's the one I'm going to throw out there. I've utilized them a ton, but any extended latch charging handle, nothing crazy like those huge flat ones, because they're going to dig into your plate carrier or dig into your chest when you're slung up, but something with just a slight extension to get past that LPVO is going to be good to go. Now, the LPVOs that I'm recommending right now are a lot of the Primary Arms ACSS reticle style LPVOs, especially the new Nova series. These things get bright as the sun, and you can effectively use them as a red dot for close quarter scenarios, but there's a lot of other LPVOs on the channel that I recommend, so you'll want to go through all of those. But some of my favorites right now in the $300 price range are the brand new ACSS Nova reticle systems from Primary Arms, so definitely give those a look. So I know this video was a little bit longer than usual, but I wanted to discuss a lot of this setup in detail, because I don't know if I've ever done a video where I discuss my favorite type of rifle for a price range, my favorite type of red dots for a price range, which would be something like this or some of the Sealy options, and my lights all in one video. If you have any thoughts or comments or suggestions or things that I may have missed, or your favorites, please leave them in the comments section below. And again, check out that campsite page in the description below to gather more information about all of these items, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one.